In the vast expanse of the galaxy, countless stars twinkled silently, each one hosting its own world of life, mysteries, and untold stories. Some civilizations were old and wise, others were young and ambitious, while some were just beginning to find their way in the universe. The galaxy was a place of constant movement, a place where alliances were formed and enemies created. Among all these worlds, there was one peaceful planet, a small and humble civilization known as the Lohari. The Lohari people had always been a quiet, gentle species, living in harmony with nature. Their world was beautiful, covered in lush forests and endless oceans. They were known for their wisdom, peace-loving ways, and their great understanding of the universe. The Lohari had never been involved in any galactic conflicts, preferring instead to focus on knowledge and science. However, this made them vulnerable in the galaxy, a galaxy that was anything but peaceful. One fateful day, their peaceful existence was shattered when a powerful alien empire known as the Corithians descended upon their planet. The Corithians were ruthless conquerors, known for their overwhelming military strength and their desire to expand their empire at any cost. They had swept through many star systems, leaving destruction and sorrow in their wake. The Lohari people, unprepared for such a brutal force, found themselves helpless in the face of the Corithian invasion. The Corithians arrived with fleets of massive ships, armed with weapons capable of wiping out entire cities with a single blast. Their soldiers were fierce and unrelenting, sweeping through the peaceful villages of the Lohari, destroying everything in their path. The Lohari attempted to fight back, but their weapons were no match for the Corithian technology. Within days, their once beautiful cities were reduced to rubble, and the Lohari were forced to flee into the forests or take shelter in the caves beneath their planet. As the days turned into weeks, the situation grew worse. The Lohari leadership, consisting of wise elders who had long guided their people, gathered in their last remaining stronghold. They were devastated by the losses they had already suffered, but they were not ready to give up. They had a duty to their people, and they knew they had to fight for their survival. Yet there was one problem. They had no one to turn to for help. The galaxy, with all its great powers, turned its back on them. The larger civilizations, the ones with the greatest influence and military might, saw no benefit in helping a small, insignificant race like the Lohari. The Zarnathi Empire, the Vorelian Confederacy, and other mighty galactic factions had their own problems to deal with. Some even saw the Lohari as weak and incapable of defending themselves. For them, the loss of a small planet was just another casualty in the never-ending game of galactic politics. In desperation, the Lohari decided to send out a final, heartfelt plea. They had no hope of winning against the Corithians on their own, and there was no one left in the galaxy they could turn to. But there was one last chance, the young and growing species from the distant planet Earth, the humans. Earth was a world that had long remained isolated from the wider galaxy. The humans had not yet reached the stars in the same way the other civilizations had, but they were fast learners, clever, and resourceful. Their small planet, with its limited resources, had experienced its own hardships and battles. Yet humanity had survived. They had faced wars, famines, and countless challenges, and each time they had found a way to overcome them. The Lohari's message, broadcast across the stars, reached Earth. It was a simple message of desperation. Please, help us. We have nowhere left to turn. Our people are dying. Our world is being destroyed. Will you help us? The message echoed through the vast emptiness of space, reaching the ears of humanity. At first, there was silence. Earth was still struggling with its own internal issues, and many of its leaders were hesitant. Some argued that it was not their fight, that the galaxy was too far away, and that humanity had no business getting involved in the affairs of other races. After all, they had their own problems to solve. But then, one human, a woman named Commander Grace Tanaka, stepped forward. Tanaka was known for her clear thinking, her fierce determination, and her belief in the greater good. She had served in Earth's military for years, earning respect for her leadership and vision. She saw the Lohari's call not as a distant plea, but as an opportunity for humanity to show the galaxy what they were capable of. A chance for humanity to stand for something bigger than themselves. "I believe this is our moment," Commander Tanaka said, standing before the world's leaders. "We cannot turn away from those who need us. If the galaxy refuses to help, then humanity will be the shield that protects them. We will not allow this planet to fall. We must act." And so, humanity made its decision. Despite the doubts of many, the decision was made to answer the call. The humans would stand as protectors for the Lohari people. And though they had no idea what lay ahead, they knew one thing for sure. This would be the beginning of something much greater than anyone could imagine. The message from the Lohari people had spread across the stars, and Earth had heard it. The world was quiet for a moment, as people from every corner of the planet waited for a decision to be made. The leaders of Earth gathered in a grand hall, a place where important decisions were made, a place that had seen both war and peace in Earth's history. Today, it was a place of tension. This was no ordinary meeting. The fate of an entire alien race, and possibly the future of humanity itself, hung in the balance. Commander Grace Tanaka stood before them, her eyes filled with determination. She had spent years serving in Earth's military, working her way up through the ranks, and earning the trust of the people. She knew the cost of war, but she also knew the price of inaction. As a young officer, she had seen Earth suffer through its own conflicts, and she had witnessed the strength of humanity when united. Now, the call for help from the Lohari people stirred something deep within her, a belief that humanity's moment to shine had finally arrived. "I understand your concerns," Tanaka said, addressing the gathered leaders. "We're not a large military power, and we're not equipped for a war across the galaxy. But that's exactly why we must act. The galaxy has turned its back on them, and we cannot be a part of that. We have a duty to stand for something greater than ourselves." Her words carried weight, and many in the room nodded in agreement. There were some, however, who disagreed. They argued that Earth had its own struggles to face, and that getting involved in an intergalactic conflict could put Earth in danger. After all, the Corinthian Empire was known for its power and ruthlessness. It wasn't a decision to be taken lightly. Yet, despite the opposition, there was a growing sense of unity. Earth had always been a world that prided itself on innovation and resilience. It had survived 2 world wars, dealt with environmental disasters, and found a way to heal itself. What was a distant, unknown war in comparison? The moment for action had come. Finally, after hours of discussion, the vote was held. It was a close call, but the majority of Earth's leaders chose to stand with the Lohari. The decision was made. Humanity would answer the call for help. In the days that followed, Earth's military began to mobilize. Ships were constructed, resources were allocated, and soldiers were trained. Commander Tanaka was put in charge of the mission, her leadership and experience making her the obvious choice to lead humanity into the unknown. But she knew this would be no easy task. The Corinthians were not to be underestimated. They were a highly advanced and powerful empire, and the Lohari's pleas for help had only reached Earth because they were desperate. Yet, Tanaka felt something in her heart, a spark of hope. Humanity had always been resourceful, and their greatest strength was their ability to adapt. They had survived against the odds countless times before. She believed they could do it again. Earth's space fleet, though smaller than many of the galactic powers, was growing in strength. Years of research and development had led to the creation of advanced technologies that would give humanity an edge. Among the many pieces of technology being prepared was a fleet of new starships, designed with the latest advancements in stealth, firepower, and speed. The humans were not going into this battle unprepared. They would be able to match the Corinthians in ways that other races could not. As the fleet prepared to depart, Tanaka stood on the bridge of one of the lead ships, gazing out at the stars. The crew of the ship was a mix of humans from every part of Earth, scientists, soldiers, engineers, and even civilians who volunteered to help. They were all united in one purpose: to protect the Lohari people and show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. "We're not just fighting for them," Tanaka said, turning to her crew. "We're fighting for all of us, for the future of every civilization out there that needs a protector. This is our chance to show the galaxy that we are more than just another species. We're humanity, and we stand together when it matters most." Her words were met with a chorus of nods. They were ready. They were ready to show the galaxy that no one, no empire, no force, could stand against them when they united for a noble cause. The journey to the Lohari homeworld took several weeks. During that time, the crew trained together, preparing for the challenges ahead. They studied the Corinthians, learning everything they could about their strategies, their technology, and their weaknesses. Commander Tanaka's leadership inspired confidence in everyone. They knew they were ready for the fight. As the fleet neared the Lohari planet, the sight before them was shocking. The planet, once beautiful and full of life, was now in chaos. The once clear skies were dark with the smoke of burning cities. The ground shook with explosions. The Corinthian ships hovered above the planet, their powerful weapons firing down on the defenseless surface below. The Lohari had no way of defending themselves. Tanaka's heart tightened as she watched the destruction unfold before her eyes. The time for hesitation was over. Humanity had made its choice, and now they would keep their promise. "Prepare for battle," Tanaka ordered, her voice calm but firm. "We're going to stop this. For the Lohari. For all of us." The human fleet moved into position, and the battle to save the Lohari people and prove humanity's place in the galaxy was about to begin. The stars shone brightly above the Lohari planet as humanity's fleet arrived, but the sight before them was grim. The once peaceful world was now under siege. The Corinthian Empire's massive ships loomed in the sky, firing their destructive weapons at the planet below. The beautiful forests and cities of the Lohari were burning, and their cries for help echoed through the void of space. Commander Grace Tanaka stood at the bridge of her flagship, her eyes fixed on the planet ahead. The mission had been clear: to protect the Lohari people and stop the Corinthian invasion. She knew that humanity's involvement was not just about saving one world. It was about showing the galaxy that Earth would not stand by when innocent lives were at risk. The galaxy might have turned its back on the Lohari, but humanity had not. "Prepare for engagement," Tanaka's voice rang out with calm authority. The crew of the ship moved swiftly, their hands steady as they carried out her orders. This was the moment they had trained for, and there was no turning back now. The human fleet had come to fight, and they were ready. Around Tanaka, the crew worked in unison. The engineers double-checked the ship's systems, ensuring that the powerful energy shields and advanced weapons were ready. The pilots prepared their fighter ships, loading them with specialized missiles designed to cut through the Corinthian defenses. The medical teams stood by, ready to treat any injuries that would inevitably come. As the fleet prepared to enter the atmosphere, Tanaka took a moment to look out at the stars. The humans had always been small, just a single world in a vast galaxy. But now, they had the chance to make a difference, to prove that they were more than just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The human fleet moved toward the planet, and the battle began. The Corinthian ships were massive, their dark hulls dotted with glowing red lights. They fired laser beams from their massive cannons, sending blasts of energy toward the surface. The human ships, though smaller, were fast and maneuverable. They darted in and out of the enemy fire, their shields deflecting the incoming blasts. Tanaka's flagship led the charge, moving swiftly toward the heart of the Corinthian fleet. "Target the lead Corinthian ship," Tanaka ordered. "Focus all fire on it. We need to send a message." The human fleet responded with precision. Their advanced weapons, developed through years of research and ingenuity, fired in quick succession. Energy blasts struck the Corinthian ship, tearing through its defenses. The enemy ship shuddered, but it was not enough to bring it down. The Corinthians retaliated, launching their own barrage of missiles. The battle was fierce, but the humans fought with a determination that the Corinthians had not expected. They may have been outnumbered, but they made up for it with skill and resolve. Tanaka's ship fired again, this time hitting the Corinthian vessel's weak spot, a vulnerable engine port. The ship exploded in a fiery burst, sending debris scattering across space. "First strike successful," Tanaka reported, her voice steady but filled with the thrill of victory. "Keep pushing forward. We need to clear a path for the Lohari to evacuate." The human fleet pressed on, pushing through the enemy ranks. Fighters zoomed past, their weapons flashing as they took down smaller Corinthian ships. Meanwhile, the larger human vessels fired in unison, creating a barrier of energy blasts that weakened the Corinthian defenses. The Lohari, witnessing the humans' courage, cheered from the surface, their hopes reignited. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt a glimmer of hope. But the Corinthians weren't finished. A new wave of ships arrived, larger and more menacing than the first. These ships were equipped with powerful weapons capable of piercing the human fleet's shields. Tanaka's eyes narrowed as she watched the new threat approach. The battle was far from over. "Brace for impact," Tanaka shouted as the first wave of enemy fire hit the human ships. The powerful Corinthian beams slammed into the fleet's shields, causing them to flicker. Some ships took direct hits, their shields failing and sending them spiraling out of control. The medical teams scrambled to tend to the injured, while the engineers worked to restore power to the damaged vessels. "We can't hold them off much longer," one of the crew members reported. "Their firepower is too strong." Tanaka knew that the battle was at a tipping point. The humans could not win this by sheer force alone. They needed a new strategy, something bold, something unexpected. "Order the fleet to scatter," Tanaka commanded. "We'll use our speed to outmaneuver them. Break them into smaller groups, then focus on their engines. Without their engines, they can't fight back." The fleet moved as one, breaking apart and scattering across the battlefield. The Corinthian ships, unprepared for this new tactic, tried to regroup, but the humans were faster. Fighter ships darted around the Corinthian vessels, striking at their weak points. The larger human ships fired powerful energy blasts at the Corinthian engines, causing several to explode in fiery bursts. The tide of the battle was turning. The Corinthians, though powerful, had underestimated the resourcefulness of humanity. Their fleets began to falter as the human ships picked them apart, one by one. The Corinthians may have had superior numbers, but the humans had something far more important: unity and determination. As the human fleet continued to push forward, Tanaka's mind was focused on one thing: the Lohari people. The Corinthians had caused enough damage. They had no more time to waste. "We're almost there," Tanaka said, her voice firm. "Prepare for the final push. We finish this now." With renewed strength, the human fleet launched one last attack, hitting the remaining Corinthian ships with everything they had. The Corinthians, now retreating, fired a final salvo, but it was too late. The humans had won. The Lohari planet was safe, for now, and humanity had proven itself on the galactic stage. The galaxy had turned its back, but humanity had stood tall as their shield. The battle had been long and fierce, but as the final Corinthian ships flooded into the void, the humans could finally breathe. The once imposing fleet of invaders was broken, their power shattered by the relentless drive of humanity's forces. The skies above Lohari, once filled with fire and destruction, now seemed to calm. The planet had been saved, but the war was far from over. Commander Grace Tanaka stood on the observation deck of her flagship, gazing out at the planet below. The Lohari were celebrating, their people no longer trapped in fear. But Tanaka knew that the victory was bittersweet. So much had been lost, and many of the humans and Lohari who had fought alongside them had given their lives. It would take time to heal, to rebuild, and to ensure that the Corinthians would never return. "Commander, the fleet is reporting all clear," a voice said from behind her. Tanaka turned to see her first officer, Lieutenant Ryan Morrow, approaching. Tanaka nodded. "Good, but we can't let our guard down. The Corinthians won't forget this defeat so easily. They'll regroup and come for us again." Morrow's face was solemn, but he respected Tanaka's cautious optimism. "What's the next step, Commander?" "We stay here and assist the Lohari," Tanaka said firmly. "We need to help them rebuild and ensure they're ready for any other threats, and we need to make sure the Corinthians know we're not going to back down. If they come for us again, they will be met with force." She looked out at the planet once more. The Lohari had suffered so much. Their cities were still burning in places, the scars of war visible in every corner of the world. But despite everything, they had held on. And now, with the humans' help, they had a chance to recover. The next few days were spent in a flurry of activity. The human fleet helped the Lohari repair their cities, rebuild their infrastructure, and provide medical aid. Teams of engineers worked alongside Lohari technicians, fixing the damage caused by the Corinthian bombardment. Human soldiers assisted with the cleanup efforts, helping the Lohari people rebuild their homes and recover the pieces of their shattered world. Commander Tanaka visited the surface of Lohari, meeting with the leaders of the planet to discuss the next phase of their recovery. She saw firsthand the devastation the Corinthians had caused. Entire forests had been burned to the ground, and the once thriving cities were now ghost towns. But there was also hope. The Lohari were resilient, and with the human forces by their side, they would rebuild. "We will not forget what you've done for us," said the Lohari leader, High Chancellor Valor. "You have saved our people, and we will always be in your debt." Tanaka smiled, though her heart was heavy. It was the right thing to do. No one should have to face what you've gone through alone. "But there is more to be done," Valor continued. "The Corinthians may be gone, but their allies still lurk in the shadows. We must unite the galaxy, or we risk falling prey to more invasions." Tanaka nodded. "I agree, and that's why we're staying. Humanity will protect Lohari, and together, we'll make sure no one is left to face the darkness alone again." As the days passed, the human fleet continued its work. The atmosphere on Lohari began to change. The fear that had once gripped the population began to fade, replaced with hope. The survivors, both human and Lohari, worked side by side, building not only a stronger planet, but also a bond that could not be broken. Back aboard the flagship, Tanaka sat at her desk, reviewing reports and preparing for the future. The war might have been won, but the peace was just beginning. The Corinthian Empire, though defeated in battle, was not so easily extinguished. They would regroup, they would rebuild, and they would try again. But humanity would be ready. They had already proven themselves in battle. And now they would prove themselves as protectors and allies. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Tanaka looked up to see Lieutenant Morrow standing in the doorway, a serious expression on his face. "Commander," Morrow said, "we've intercepted a transmission from the Corinthian fleet." Tanaka's heart skipped a beat. She had known it was too quiet. The Corinthians were not a species that gave up easily. "What does it say?" "It's a warning," Morrow replied. "They're coming back. They want revenge for the defeat, but they also mentioned something else." Tanaka stood, her eyes narrowing. "What do they want?" Morrow hesitated before continuing. "They want to challenge humanity. They believe that if they can defeat us in battle again, it will prove that the galaxy belongs to them. They're rallying their allies, and they want to test us." Tanaka's jaw clenched. The Corinthians were arrogant, but they didn't understand humanity. "Then they're going to learn the hard way that we don't back down. We'll be ready for them, no matter what they throw at us." She turned toward the window, her gaze once again fixed on the planet below. The battle for Lohari was over, but the war for the galaxy was just beginning. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and there was no turning back. They would protect the weak, stand against the powerful, and make sure the galaxy knew one thing for certain. When humanity decided to fight, they didn't lose. Tanaka made a silent vow to herself. They wouldn't let the Corinthians win. Not ever. The message from the Corinthians had left Commander Grace Tanaka with a sense of unease. The Corinthian fleet had been severely damaged, but their arrogance and determination were far from broken. Despite their defeat, they were preparing to return, to challenge humanity once more and prove their dominance in the galaxy. Tanaka knew they would not be an easy enemy to defeat again, but she also knew humanity was stronger than they had ever been before. The human fleet had only a limited time to prepare. Their victory over the Corinthians on Lohari had been a massive boost to morale, but Tanaka knew the real test was still ahead. It was time to take the fight to the Corinthians, to show them that Earth would never kneel, and humanity would always stand as a shield for the innocent. Tanaka convened a meeting in the flagship's war room. Around the table sat her most trusted officers, all of whom had proved themselves on the battlefield. Lieutenant Ryan Moreau, Captain Elizabeth Clark, and Commander Simon Hayes were among them, their faces grim but determined. "Commander," Moreau began, "the Corinthians will return with a fleet larger than before. We can't underestimate them. They will be prepared." Tanaka nodded, her mind already racing through the possibilities. "Agreed. We need to make sure we have every advantage possible. We can't afford to be caught off guard this time." Captain Clark spoke up. "We've reinforced our ships, but it's not enough. If we're going to face them again, we'll need more than just firepower. We need to be faster, more flexible." Tanaka thought for a moment. "We'll have to use the environment to our advantage. The Corinthians are strong in open space battles, but they're not used to fighting in complex terrains. We'll draw them into asteroid fields, nebulas, anywhere we can make their movements unpredictable." Commander Hayes, always the strategist, added, "We should also consider working with our allies more. The Lohari, though recovering, have technology that could be useful. If we bring them into the fold, it will strengthen our position." Tanaka agreed. "I'll send word to Chancellor Valor. It's time we united more than just our fleets. We need to form an alliance that can challenge the Corinthians' reach." The meeting continued for hours as the officers discussed tactics, resources, and the logistics of preparing for the battle ahead. The human fleet, with its newly improved ships, was ready to fight. But Tanaka knew that it wasn't just technology that would win the war. It was the unity and resolve of every soldier, every citizen who believed in the cause. They were all in this together. As the preparations continued, the mood among the crew grew tense. They knew what was coming, and while the defeat of the Corinthians had been a major victory, there was no illusion that their enemies would go quietly. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humanity could stand strong, or if they would fall before the might of the Corinthian Empire. Days passed in a blur of activity. The fleet received reinforcements from other human colonies and distant allies. The Lohari, now fully healed from the initial devastation of the Corinthian attack, sent their best warriors and scientists to assist. It was a united front, and Tanaka knew that this unity would be their greatest weapon. Finally, the time came. The Corinthian fleet had reassembled. Scans indicated they were on their way to a remote system on the outskirts of human space. The human fleet, now bolstered with additional ships and ready for battle, was poised to meet them head-on. Commander Tanaka stood at the bridge of her flagship, her hands resting on the cold metal of the command console. The view in front of her showed the vastness of space, endless and infinite. But within that infinity, there was purpose. Humanity had a place among the stars now, and they would not let anyone take that away from them. "Commander," Lieutenant Moreau said, his voice steady but filled with urgency, "we've received their transmission. They're demanding our surrender. They think we're afraid." Tanaka's eyes narrowed. "Tell them this. Humanity does not surrender. We protect the innocent, and we defend what's ours." She turned to her crew. All hands, prepare for battle. We will fight with everything we have. We will not let them take what we've worked so hard to protect." The human fleet moved into position, each ship aligned and ready. Tanaka knew that this battle would define not only their survival but their place in the galaxy. If they lost, the Corinthians would strike down everything they held dear. But if they won, the galaxy would know that humanity had the strength to stand tall, no matter the odds. The first Corinthian ships appeared on the edge of the system, their massive warships cutting through space like predators on the hunt. Their dark, menacing forms sent a ripple of tension through the human fleet, but Tanaka remained calm. She had seen these ships before, had felt their power. This time, it would be different. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of," Tanaka said, her voice unwavering. With a single command, the battle began. The human fleet advanced, weaving through the stars and into the heart of the approaching Corinthian army. The first few moments were filled with tension, the silence of space broken only by the roar of engines and the flashing of weapons. Humanity's ships darted through the sky with precision, attacking in unison, exploiting the weaknesses of the Corinthian formation. The Corinthians retaliated fiercely, their ships unleashing a barrage of laser fire, but the humans were ready. The first wave of enemy ships was destroyed. But Tanaka knew this was only the beginning. The true test was yet to come. As the battle raged on, the human fleet fought with the fire of the sun itself, determined to protect their home and the allies who had placed their trust in them. The battle raged on for hours. Commander Tanaka stood tall on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. Her crew moved with precision, carrying out their orders with the calm confidence of soldiers who had faced the unknown before. The Corinthian fleet was relentless, but humanity had something the invaders didn't: unity, courage, and the will to fight for a future. In the distance, the starry backdrop of space seemed to fade as explosions rocked the battlefield. The Corinthian ships, large and intimidating, fired with ruthless efficiency, but they were beginning to falter. The human fleet, agile and well-coordinated, had already taken down several of their smaller vessels, leaving the Corinthians scrambling to maintain their formation. "Keep pushing," Tanaka said calmly, her voice carrying through the command center. "We're not giving them a chance to regroup." Lieutenant Moreau, stationed at the communications console, glanced over his shoulder. "Commander, the Lohari fleet is on approach. They're entering the system, right on schedule." Tanaka nodded, her mind already calculating their next move. The alliance with the Lohari had been vital. Their advanced technology had given the human fleet a much-needed advantage, and now their ships were cutting through the Corinthian lines like a hot knife through butter. "Good," Tanaka replied, her voice steady. "Tell them to engage the rear flank. We can trap them between us." The Corinthians, though formidable, were beginning to show signs of wear. The human fleet had proven itself to be an unyielding force, each ship moving with purpose, each crew member determined not to let the invaders succeed. On the front lines, Captain Clark led her squadron with flawless precision. She had been a part of the initial victory over the Corinthians on Lohari, and today she fought with the same passion that had carried humanity through its darkest moments. "Focus fire on their command ship," Clark ordered, her voice cutting through the comms. Her pilots responded immediately, their ship swarming the Corinthian flagship. The massive vessel, previously a symbol of the Corinthian Empire's strength, was now surrounded. Energy blasts lit up the blackness of space as the human fighters closed in. "Target their engines," Clark continued. "We can't afford them to escape." The Corinthian flagship shuddered as the human fleet's firepower slammed into it. Shields flickered and then collapsed, leaving the once feared ship vulnerable. Another blast struck, and the flagship's engines erupted in a blaze of light, sending it spinning helplessly through space. The Corinthians were losing their edge. As Tanaka observed the chaos unfolding before her, a sense of cautious optimism took root. She knew they couldn't stop now. Victory was within reach, but they had to finish what they had started. There was no room for hesitation. All units, focus fire on the remaining capital ships. We finish this today, Tanaka ordered, her voice filled with resolve. Around her, the human fleet moved with deadly efficiency. The Corinthians fought back with everything they had, but their once unified command was crumbling under the weight of the human fleet's precision and determination. The enemy forces had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to evolve. The humans were more than capable of standing their ground in the face of overwhelming odds. "Commander, the last of the Corinthian battlecruisers is retreating," Moro reported. "They're attempting to warp out of the system." Tanaka didn't hesitate. "Activate our disruptor fields. We can't let them escape." The human fleet's disruptor technology, developed in partnership with the Lohari, was designed to scramble the enemy's ability to warp. As the Corinthian cruiser prepared to jump into faster-than-light travel, a pulse of energy from the human ship swept across the area, disrupting the cruiser's systems. The ship's engines sputtered and failed, leaving it stranded in the heart of the battlefield. The last Corinthian ship had fallen. A cheer erupted from the crew of the flagship. Tanaka allowed herself a brief moment of relief, but she quickly reined it in. The battle wasn't over until the Corinthian fleet had been completely disabled. "Keep your focus," she reminded her crew. "We need to secure the area and make sure no ships escape. Prepare for any counterattacks." The Corinthians had been defeated, but the war was far from over. Humanity had proven that it could stand against any empire, no matter how powerful. But the galaxy was vast, and new threats would inevitably arise. Tanaka knew this, and it was why she had prepared her fleet for the long haul. They would be ready. As the last remnants of the Corinthian fleet surrendered or were destroyed, the human ships began to regroup. The Lohari had already made contact, offering their congratulations and support. "We did it, Commander," Clark said, walking up to Tanaka's side. "We've won." Tanaka nodded, but her mind was already shifting to the future. "Yes, but the fight isn't over." "Not yet." Her crew understood. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been solidified today, but the challenges would continue. They had proven themselves worthy, but they couldn't rest on their laurels. There was always more to be done, always more enemies to face, and as long as there were innocents to protect, humanity would stand as their shield. "Set a course for Earth," Tanaka ordered, her voice filled with determination. "Let's bring our people home." As the human fleet turned toward Earth, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Victory was sweet, but the road ahead would require even more strength, more unity. Humanity had shown the galaxy that it would never back down, that they would fight until the very end to protect their home and the lives of those they held dear. And no matter the cost, they would always stand strong, a shield for those in need. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. Humanity had proven itself to be an unstoppable force, but Commander Tanaka knew that the Corinthians were not the last challenge they would face. As the human fleet slowly began to leave the battle zone, the stars ahead seemed to hold both promise and uncertainty. Tanaka stood on the observation deck of the flagship, gazing out into the vastness of space. Her crew had fought with everything they had, and today they had achieved something incredible. But even in the silence of space, her thoughts raced. The galaxy was full of dangers, and humanity's victory over the Corinthian invaders was just the beginning of a much larger journey. "Commander," came the voice of Lieutenant Moro, breaking her thoughts. "The fleet is regrouping. The Lohari have offered their assistance in any repairs we may need." Tanaka turned, giving him a slight nod. "We'll accept their help, but we need to be ready for what comes next. The Corinthians won't give up easily, and I suspect there are others who will test our strength." Moro's eyes gleamed with understanding. The fight with the Corinthians had been tough, but they had done what many had thought impossible. They had stood firm in the face of an alien threat and had come out victorious. Yet there was a nagging feeling in the back of Tanaka's mind that this was merely a taste of what was to come. "Commander," Morrow continued, "we've received a message from Earth. The people there are celebrating. They want to know what our next move is." Tanaka's lips curled into a small smile. Earth had been under pressure for years, and the victory over the Corinthians had been a beacon of hope for every human. Now, the message was clear. Humanity had not only survived, but it had proven that it could thrive against the odds. "We'll need to send a message of our own," Tanaka said. "Let the people know that we've won, but also remind them that this is just the beginning. We can't rest. Not now. Not ever." Morrow nodded. "I'll prepare the message right away, Commander." As the crew worked to prepare their next steps, Tanaka found herself reflecting on how far humanity had come. The days when Earth was divided by borders and wars felt so distant now. This new era had arrived, one where humanity had learned to unite in the face of the unknown. But with unity came responsibility. The human race had risen, and now they would be expected to protect and lead. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. Humanity had become the protector of those who could not defend themselves, the shield for those who needed it. It was a heavy responsibility, but Tanaka knew that Earth's people were ready to bear it. Back on the bridge, the crew of the flagship continued to work. The Corinthian ships were being captured or destroyed, and the human fleet was moving into new positions. The Lohari had kept their word, assisting with repairs and offering their technology to help bolster humanity's defenses. Tanaka had already begun to think about how to integrate their resources into the fleet, ensuring they were ready for whatever came next. As the days passed, Earth's message reached the rest of the galaxy. The people of Earth, once seen as weak and insignificant, were now recognized as a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy began to take notice. One by one, different civilizations began to reach out, either in friendship or in caution. Some wanted to form alliances, others were wary of humanity's growing influence. But one thing was clear: humanity was no longer an afterthought. They had proven their strength, their courage, and their ability to change the course of history. Commander Tanaka sat back in her chair, allowing herself a brief moment of satisfaction. It had been a long road to get here, but humanity had done it. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But as she looked out into the stars once more, Tanaka knew there was more work to be done. The galaxy was vast, and many unknowns still lurked in its corners. Allies would need to be gathered, enemies would need to be watched, and humanity's place in the galaxy would need to be secured. "Commander," said Lieutenant Morrow, once again interrupting her thoughts, "we've received another message, this time from the Council of Allied Worlds. They're inviting us to join the Intergalactic Summit." Tanaka's eyes narrowed slightly. The invitation was a sign of respect, but it also meant that humanity would now be part of the greater galactic conversation. Earth was no longer a bystander. It was a player. "Prepare the fleet," Tanaka said, her voice firm. "We're heading to the summit. Let's show the galaxy who we are." As the human fleet set a course for the summit, Tanaka stood tall on the bridge, filled with determination. Humanity had risen from the ashes. They had proved that even against the greatest threats, they would stand strong. The future of the galaxy was uncertain, but one thing was for sure: humanity would face it with courage and unity. They had become the shield, the protectors of peace and hope in a universe that had once turned its back on them. And with that, humanity's journey into the stars was just beginning.